that it is natural for the president to disagree with the government. It was something that was...
full quotation is, it is necessary for the president to disagree with the government, possible, on 2 custodial areas.
Yeah, not in general.
Not in general.
But I'd like to move on.
Can I just add? I think the president do have a right to warn on bad decisions.
Yes.
I think he has a right
private.
to. Yes, he should. Yes, in private. He should have that right to warn. Like he said, if he's unhappy about the casino, he can just warn the Prime Minister that this is not a good decision. I think I will agree to that.
Can I just add one point to this matter, because this is absolutely fundamental to what the President is. The Constitution has been very carefully drawn up to avoid 2 powers of centre in Singapore, each given different views to the public, resulting in confusion. Such a situation, government cannot work. President must work in accordance with the Constitution as it now stands. Constitution is a living document. Constitution can be changed, but that is a matter for Parliament, not for the President. Today, on August 27, we are running for the office of the President as it now stands, not for the presidency which some candidates may wish to have with expanded executive or speaking out powers. It's as simple as that.
I was just wondering, Dr. Tony Tan, you have had views on the casino in Parliament which are contrary to the government. Has that immobilized the government in any way?
When I spoke about casinos, I was not the president. As a president, I have to be very careful, and I think that I would respect the Constitution. But you were the Deputy Prime Minister. The Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Tan Jee Say, is different from the President.
Let me move on, if I may.
Let me have a word about that. Now, when I say the voice of the people, I want to convey the voice of the people and not the President's personal view. So I want to have a mechanism to know what is it that large numbers of people feel. I want to make this point in this particular case.
If I may move on to another role of the President. Yes. The President, being head of state, is the person who receives the letters of credence of foreign ambassadors. He also signs the letters of credence of our ambassador to foreign countries. And when foreign leaders visit Singapore, they would normally request to call on the President at the Istana. So I'd like to ask each of you, supposing you are the President, and 4 leaders of the world, President Obama of the United States, President Hu of China, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh of India, President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono of Indonesia, were visiting Singapore. Could you just share with us the 3 key messages you would convey to one of the leaders which you are free to choose? Whose turn to start first?
Let me start first. First, I will, on this matter, get the advice of the government and the foreign minister, because these are more issues of national relationship. Now, apart from that, I would like to also convey to the visitors what Singaporeans are, what are our aspirations and our values. And I want to convey to visiting dignitaries that Singaporeans are nice people, that they are ordinary people wanting to make a better life. That is what I want to convey. I certainly don't want them to get the impression that Singaporeans are elitist and arrogant. So I hope that this would be the message I pass across.
I think you asked a very tricky question. But I can sense where you're coming from, because the 4 leaders you mentioned are very important to our country. So I'll be very, very cautious. I definitely got to act on the advice of our foreign ministry, because each country has a particular relationship with us, and I have to be guided by how far I can go as a president in my conduct with all these leaders in my conversation. I got to tread a very careful path because I cannot give some more important or the other one less importance because I think this is a very diplomatic exercise.
Thank you. Mr. Tan.
Let me get your question right. What message do I give to these four very
anyone.
Choose anyone.
Choose one of the four leaders.
Well, I will give the same message to any of the four leaders.
Okay.
I will say, well, in a very polite way, the issue facing all of us now, in the world, in your country, in Asia, in my country, in Singapore, is a global economy and the precarious state of the global economy today. We are in danger of having another crisis. We almost went into another global depression in 2008 and 2009. If it were not for the unprecedented actions taken by central banks and government leaders, we would be back to the 1930s. We would have 20% unemployment. The problems which we have today would be minuscule compared to what could happen. We are not yet in that state down there, but you look at the stock markets every day, they are in turmoil. Government leaders in Europe are rushing around, meeting with each other, trying to show up the Eurozone crisis. America has had its debt credit rating downgraded. Problems are there, dark clouds are there. If it turns into a crisis, consequences will be very sudden, very widespread, very disruptive. Let us not let that happen. This is fundamental to our well-being, to the well-being of everybody throughout the world, including Singapore.
Thank you.
Tan Jee Say.
Well, I think I would consult the Prime Minister on this. Yeah. Various countries have got various problems, issues with us. So I wouldn't do a common gun approach there, giving the same answer to individual head of state or head of government, because our problems are different. So, and that is where the Prime Minister comes in to advise me, or the Foreign Minister comes in to advise me. I would take a specific approach for a specific head of state.
Right, thank you.
Now we have a last question.
Answer the question.
Can I follow up on Dr. Tony Tan?
Yes.
Just quickly, we're running out of time.
Now, you mentioned the things you will do. What struck me was surely that's the job of the finance minister on the economic issue. And aren't you taking an executive role in the office of the president?
I am absolutely not. The president does not make decisions. The prime minister and the cabinet makes the decisions. But the president, who has the background and the experience, I think has a responsibility to warn, to give his views. But it's up to the prime minister to decide what to do. I think it's very clear in the constitution what is spelled out. What is the responsibility of the president, what is the responsibility of the prime minister and the cabinet. I see no conflict between the two.
Okay,
Let's get back to one area where the president does have power. In 2008, against a backdrop of a global financial crisis, President Nathan gave his approval for $150 billion guarantee for all bank deposits in Singapore using the past reserves. And in January 2009, he approved spending $4.9 billion from past reserves for the jobs credit scheme. Two questions. One, would you do the same in similar circumstances and act as expeditiously as he did? And two, would you authorize dipping into the reserves under any other circumstances short of such a dire crisis?
Okay, we only have 3 minutes left, so 30 seconds to 45 seconds each. Dr.
Yes,
Tan.
I will do the same.
And would you authorize dipping into the reserves under any other circumstances?
If it's, oh yes, depending how it affects the Singaporeans. Because my first principle is that if you dip into the reserves, you must give me good reasons why. Because it's the Singaporeans' money and I'm taking care of it, I will be very guarded on that.
You have spoken about a $60 billion regeneration plan. Would you use the reserves for that?
Well, I'll go back to the first question, the first two questions, whether I would do the same as President Nathan. The first question, get bank guarantee. I think that's every country did that, so we'll go along with it for financial stability purposes. As for the question of job credit, I think I would ask more questions than that because it amounts to a wage subsidy. So maybe it was right at that time, and maybe we overdid it because the recession was quite shorter than what we had expected. So more needs to be done.
As president, I would think very carefully, very deeply before I authorize any use of the reserves. It can only be used in a dire need. Because our reserves are our rainy day savings, built up from the past to be used possibly in the present, but we must have leave enough for the future. I think the situation in 2008-2009 was very clear. If we didn't use the reserves at a time when we face another repeat of the 1930s depression, that would be irresponsible. Will we have to do that again? I do not know. How the future develops, how the economy develops is something which enormous number of economists, businessmen are trying to discern. I hope not, but as I said, one never says never in this world.
Now, I have some concern about using the reserves to have bank guarantee. And I will certainly look at it very carefully. Should we be guaranteeing banks in Singapore?
The guarantee of deposits.
The guarantee of deposits. Should we be guaranteeing deposits in Singapore or deposits of non-Singapore banks? So I think I will study very carefully. It shouldn't be answered within 30 seconds.
All right, thank you much, all of you. It's time for another quick break. When we come back, we'll focus on the personal qualities of the candidates. Stay with us.
30 minutes.
Welcome back. You're watching Meet the Candidates. In this segment, we will focus on the personal qualities of the candidates, starting with how they've helped to solve problems in their careers. Journalists.
What has been the toughest call in your career? What decision did you make that had to go against the tide, where you had to take an unpopular stand? Mr. Tan, Dr. Tan.
Well, I think it happened in Parliament when I had to decide whether I should support my government's call to have nominated members of Parliament. It was a difficult decision because I can see where it's coming from. The bill was to encourage or to nominate people from the private sector into Parliament. That to me is not correct because I believe all members of Parliament should be elected. So I had to make this choice, whether I serve my party or I serve my country. I see this as serving my party more than the country. So I had actually quite a difficult decision to make. But at the end, I think my country comes first. The nation comes first. So I voted against the party, although the whip was not lifted. I thought that was to me one of the difficult decisions I had to make.
Mr. Tan Kim Liang.
During the Lehman crisis, I could see that there were 10,000 more people that were affected. And of course, I have to struggle with, do I speak out for them? And my family and my friends says, don't get into trouble. Well, I spoke out for them, and I think many people appreciate this. And I would like to continue to be able to speak out for Singaporeans.
But it wasn't an unpopular decision.
It was difficult. It was popular with some people, but quite unpopular with others in the establishment.
Mr. Tan Jee Say.
My difficult moment was when it occurred in the corporate sector. I had just moved in as a CEO, and there was some, obviously, problem of acceptance because we have differences of view on how investment policies should be run and all that, and the strategies for it. So, obviously, I was the head man. I could have my way if I wanted to, but I didn't. So it was a constructive engagement that won the day. Obviously, I had deep discussion with my group CEO in London who understood the problem. I kept him informed all the way, every discussion all along the way between me and my immediate subordinate. And it worked out well. And despite the differences of opinion, it went on for 1-2 years. And we continue to work together without letting personal differences interfere with the investment process and be unfair to our investors. Obviously, that kind of constructive engagement is what I would do if I'm president. There will be differences of opinion every time, whether it's in corporate sector or in government. No two minds are of the same. We are all born unequally.
Dr. Tan?
The graduate mother scheme. That was a controversial scheme because strongly advocated by very senior members of the government.